The Bigfooty Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, Conda, power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hello and welcome to the Port Adelaide Preview Podcast for Round 3 versus the Adelaide Crows. The game will be played on Saturday night at Adelaide Oval. I'm Portia, and joining me, as regularly seems to be the case, is Macca. Macca, how are you?
What's going on?
Yeah, not much. Just getting ready for a corker of a game coming up. I guess that before the regular season started, we were probably thinking this might have been a bit of a fizzer, but it's looking pretty red hot right now, 1 versus 2.
Oh, top of the table. First time that's happened.
Yeah.
It's always very exciting.
It is very exciting. And what's really interesting about it is the form of the teams that both teams have beaten. In that I think that at the end of the year, we'll know a lot more about the teams that lost these games than we do right now. So, for example, Hawthorn and Sydney, the Crows beat Hawthorn, we've beaten Sydney away. Are they both on the fall? Are they both dropping down the ladder? And that's part of why we got those wins. Or are we just excellent? Both teams pretty good. Be interesting to see. So that'll all roll out. But at the moment, it just looks like a fantastic contest. So
there you go.
Should be good.
Should be very good.
Yeah. So look, we'll just cover the hot topic. First of all, there's not much going on at this point. Just Jake Lever having contract shenanigans with the Crows. It's another big player at the Crows, or big player, I mean literally, tall player, threatening to leave the Crows at the end of the year. They seem to be making a habit of it. He says he's waiting for the CBA. Do you think he'll actually stay, or do you think he'll go?
Oh, it's a tough one. Both him and McGovern are out of contract, I think, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think Lever might be the one that, if someone's going to go, I reckon it will be Lever, as opposed to McGovern. But yeah, definitely interesting. Is he waiting for the CBA? Possibly. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there, but he's probably worth a fair bit of money. He had a really good year last year. He's back in the side again this week. Be interesting to see what happens there, but I'll certainly have a little chuckle to myself if they lose another key position player.
Yeah, they've certainly lost a few. And the other thing about waiting for the CBA is that it can mean two things. So one can mean, can the Crows pay me enough? Or the other one can mean, hey, when the CBA's agreed, then the headhunters will be out in force and we'll see what I get offered.
Yeah, well, that's it.
So that's the real...
He'll be hot property.
That's the real... Yeah, it'd be interesting.
I can see someone like Melbourne offering him, $600,000 a year.
Yeah, maybe not Melbourne so much. But yeah, definitely a team. Definitely a team for sure.
Maybe a team in Melbourne. Yeah. There you go.
So, yeah, there we go. That's very likely, yes. or Gold Coast.
Yeah.
All right, well, look, we're doing a different feature this week, which is basically we're going to be doing hopefully for the rest of the year, we'll see, which is the What Are They Up To? Where rather than talk about the last time they met, which is usually, it's a little bit fun sometimes, a little bit depressing sometimes, this is actually a bit more useful if you want to know something about what to expect on the weekend, which I suppose is what this is all about. So Crows so far, they've played 2 games this year, and we're just going to talk a little bit about those and things like how they won and so on. So that's a new segment for this year. Hooray. We'll start with round 1. The Crows beat GWS at Adelaide Oval. 22 goals, 15, 147 to 14 goals, 791. That's a 56-point win, 37 scoring shots to 21, which is a pretty significant difference there. And look, what does that tell us about the Crows as a team that we're going to have to come back against? I personally say that maybe GWS is not quite where they should be for a couple of reasons. What are your thoughts, Macca?
Look, round 1, I mean, a lot of premiership favourites and good teams have a little slow start to the season, I guess, and maybe that was GWS's excuse on that particular weekend as well. But look, the Crows played really, really well. They were certainly very impressive through the second half, as they were against Hawthorn as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, look, they had a pretty big win. Is Leon Cameron the weakest link for GWS? Quite possibly he is. I mean, I guess we'll find out at the end of this season, because really they should be, like, bare minimum, making a grand final. That's they've got the list, they've got the experience now. They need to make a grand final minimum with this playing list.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the interesting thing about it is that they're being rated as premiership favourites or at least chances because of the quality of their playing list. But it's not. I don't think it's quite as good as we think it is. Because they're still playing a lot of guys that you sort of say, oh, okay, they're good to have a little bit on the edge, but they're sort of mainstays in the side. A lot of smaller players, but the big mids, I mean, losing Jay O'Mara, that looks a bit silly now, doesn't it? No, he's from Gold Coast, sorry. Wrong one.
He's from Gold Coast,
okay. Yeah, brain, come on, work. Yeah, but now Tom Scully, all these guys they're not the biggest midfield, and we thought they were going to compete on, but maybe not. What is their theme now at GWS as far as
they
a
did
team
come
being a
out
team?
and absolutely destroy Gold Coast, so maybe they just had a slow start in round one. I guess we'll find out next week, really, how we go against them.
That's very true. And look, I guess we'll move on to round two. The Crows played Hawthorn and they won again. Crows kicked 16 goals, 17, 113, and beat Hawthorn 13 goals, 11, 89 at the MCG, which is good for them, an away win at the MCG. They only won by 24 points, but they still had about the same scoring shot ratio as the game before, where they won by 56, 33 scoring shots to 24. Looking at the match, Hawthorn look really like they're done. Macca, what do you think's going on there? Do you think they're going to recover from that, or are they just going to have a down year?
Oh, look, I've said all along that they're going to miss the finals this year. Like, what do the older players have to play for? Like, they were going for history last year with the 4 in a row. They missed out on that. I think it's probably going to be a similar case to what happened to Brisbane. Maybe not that drastic, but I would expect them to miss the finals this year and quite possibly for the next few as well, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, the real... For me, I've always contended that their defence has not been... As far as the quality of the players in the defence, I've always contended it's not been amazing. It's been solid, but not really all that great. And to see them against the Crows just fall apart on things that Hawthorn have been known for years and years now, just that team ethic, running for each other, precise delivery. I mean, that was all massively missing in that last quarter against the Crows particularly.
As soon as the Crows midfield got on top, they had that overlap run going, and their forward line had a field day through the second half, and that was the key for them against GWS as well, was getting that overlap run going. We know the Crows midfield on paper is probably not that great. That was their weak point last year as well, and that's where we could get an advantage this week. But they are playing pretty well, the Crows midfield, at this point in time. And if they do win the contested bowl, they run in waves, and they've got the pace on the outside now to really stream forward and cause teams a few headaches. Yeah,
no, there's no doubt. And look, I guess we'll move on to the next part, which is basically how are they winning? What are we going to do about it, pretty much? So I think what's really picked up for the Crows is their forward pressure, keeping the ball locked in the forward 50. They're doing a much better job of that, I think, than they have in previous years. Previous years, I think they've been a bit more content to let it sort of come back and then rebound. And if they get it in there quickly from the midfield, it's going to be difficult for any defence, and I suppose it's going to be difficult for our defence to get it back out again. So it'll be interesting to see how we approach the midfield contests. You'd have to think that they're going to go to space, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, they'll try and get it wide to the wings and try to get it to guys like Malera and Knight and Hampton to try and use their pace and try and run off. And I guess the key for us is we've just got to win the contested bowl. If we do what we did against Freo and against Sydney, I'm not too concerned that we're going to lose the midfield battle, to be honest. And I think we'll be able to keep them to under a winning score. But that's the key. If we win the contested bowl, we win those clearances, Ryder gets over the top of Jacobs, which we all hope will happen, then I think we're looking pretty good.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is how much of a defensive game do we really want, defensive mindset do we really want to go in with this week? Because, I mean, the Crows have kicked over 100 points the last two games, which you'd have to say that's most of the reason why they're winning is because they're coming up against defences that just can't contain them. And they've got 12 forwards competent enough that you've got to pay attention to them, but they've also got, guys like Eddie Betts, who you also have to pay attention to as well. I don't know.
They've got the best forward line in the
confident.
League. They've got the best forward line
yeah.
in the league. They've got the most diverse forward line in the league as well, because they've got four.
Yes, I'd agree with that for sure.
Three this week at least, genuine key forwards who can all kick a bag of goals. They've got Eddie Betts, who's the best small forward in the league. They've got Charlie Cameron, who runs through there as well, who can kick goals. Riley Knight's kicking goals. Rory Atkins is kicking goals. They're all kicking goals at the moment. So if you stop the supply, that's going to be the key.
So do you reckon it's going to be a bit of a shootout and centre clearance wins it?
I think so, yeah, because look, if the Crows get enough of the ball through the midfield, they're going to kick, their 15 to 18 goals. That's just going to happen. So the key for us is to make sure that Ebert and Boak and Wines and Pal Pepper are winning the ball through the midfield, get it up our end. And I'm pretty confident that if we get the ball up our end, even if we don't kick a goal every time we go in, that our defensive pressure is going to be good enough to stop them from getting it from their defensive 50 through to their forward line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the other thing that the Crows, they've had that for a while now, but they've got a midfield that works pretty hard going forward and back, but we've been matching them, but maybe not for as long. So, this year we've been doing that pretty well, making sure that the midfield goes back to help the defenders and also runs forward with the attack.
Yeah. We haven't done that all previously, have we? We've been pretty terrible in that for the last few years. So.
Not often. When we were beating
first two games have been good
when it was important, we'd do it. Yeah. First two games have been pretty good. So you might think that's a bit of an each way thing, but that they've got the more solid form on that count. I guess we've already talked about how GWS and Hawthorn maybe not top 8 sides, or at least one of them is.
GWS is a top 4 side for sure. Hawthorn, I would say, is not a top 8 side, but yep, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
GWS will finish top or second.
Yeah. Before finals. You're saying, or do you think they'll actually win the important ones? Yeah, okay.
I think a bit of both.
Bit of both, okay.
Bit of both.
Fair enough. All right. Well, look, we'll move on to the big news for the week, which is the massive changes to the Port Adelaide playing list. Hompsh is out with the knee. Hartlett comes in. What do you think, Macca?
It's annoying. Very, very annoying. We finally got a defensive group which was winning the contest. They all doing their job, and suddenly Hompsh is out for up to a month, if not a little bit more. So it's a bit of a kick in the guts. It's a big pain in the arse. But thankfully Jenkins is out as well. So I guess we'll have to see what they do with Lever if he plays forward, which he's done sometimes in the past, or if he goes down back as well. So I think in terms of the selection, Hartlett for Hompsh, Hartlett had to come back in, and we were sort of a little bit, we were scratching our heads a bit through the preview podcast earlier this week on who comes out. Well, I guess that made that selection drama a little bit easier.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried. This is probably one of the worst weeks to go down one tool in defence. Do you think we'll get exposed on that count, or do you think that the improvement in kicking that Hartlett will offer over Hompsh might give us that edge back?
If Jenkins was playing, I would agree that it is the worst possible week to lose a key defender. But I think with Jenkins out of the side, that it makes things a little bit easier, I think, as well. Certainly if Hompsh was out and Jenkins was playing, I'd be going, God, who are we going to play on these guys? But Jenkins out is a bit of a godsend because he does play very, very well against us as well.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I guess we don't have to worry about that now, so that's good. The next thing, people were talking about Pittard maybe coming back during the week. I don't know. I kind of feel like Pittard being out of the side isn't a huge concern when Houston's in the sort of form he's been in. And that we've got enough other options, and obviously adding Hartlett to the defence that was already doing all right last week. And combined with that, a midfield that isn't falling apart. Are we okay without Pittard? And does that spell... Or does that tell us something about our potential future now that he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year?
I'm content that Pittard's playing the Indy SANFL this week. I think it was going to be hard to find someone else to drop out of the side to bring him back in. So I think for 1 week, play him in the SANFL. He hasn't played for 3 or 4 weeks. Get that little bit of match fitness and touch back, and then maybe bring him back in against GWS.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, the next one, emergencies this week, which we didn't name. Joe Atley and Miles Baholke. Joe Atley for Port, Miles Baholke for the Crows. Have both been named as emergencies and both drafted, fairly late in last year's draft. We're seeing a hell of a lot of 2016 draftees playing already, Macca. Is this more than usual, do you reckon? It feels like it.
It does feel maybe a little bit more than usual. And there's a few more named this week as well, or there's a few debutants across the whole league this week, so... Griffin Logue for Freo as well. So maybe
Yeah.
Maybe, Jarrett Berry and Hugh McCluggage as well for Brisbane. So they're two first-round picks for them. Ben Long for St Kilda as well. So there's plenty of debutants across the board. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a little bit unusual to see this many first-year players playing this early on. But good on them. They've obviously had good pre-seasons. And look, we know how impressive Atlee was for us through the pre-season. And by all reports, Polkey was the same for the Crows as well. So they'll get their chance pretty soon, I would think.
Yeah, no, it's certainly interesting. And furthermore, we've got Brett Eddy, who's managed to stay on the side for a third week. How do you feel about that,
Good.
Macca?
Very, very good.
Yeah?
Very content with that one. Well, look, if we do choose to play Trengove down back...
we should.
Which might still happen, then we do still need someone like Brett Eddy to play out forward just to keep that sort of structural integrity going, which we've had through the first two winning rounds. So... And look, he played a pretty good game last week. Every time he touches the ball, something happens, usually on the positive side of things. So I guess the key for him is to maybe take a few more marks inside 50. And if he can get another sort of 3 or 4 touches, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of feel like Brett Eddy is the guy playing alongside Treadway we needed, 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. No, I would 100% agree with that because he's exactly that sort of player that we needed. Like we had Chad Corns, who was the sort of roamer a little bit forward of the play. Treadray just dominating everywhere else. But we did need that third toll, which Lady did play pretty well, you've got to say, in that sort of role. But
That's true.
Maybe Brett Eddy might have kicked a few more goals than Toby Thurston's did.
Yeah, could be. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? All right, we'll look at the Crows squad now. They've only made the one change themselves. Obviously, we've talked about it a little bit. Josh Jenkins out, Jake Lever in, which doesn't make a huge difference to their makeup of their side on the whole. And I guess we'll go through the specific matchups. And I guess the one that people are looking at, which maybe isn't as important as basic stats might say, is Jacobs versus Ryder. It's an interesting one. Yeah, well, Jacobs, he's had 2 games so far this year, one where he got 20-something hit-outs, the other where he's got 40-something hit-outs, and yet the Crows' clearances remain static between those 2 matches, which says that they're not getting a lot of benefit from him, or maybe not as much. I would say probably not as much as we're getting from Ryder. I'm thinking that if Ryder's allowed to keep sort of playing the way he has and almost kind of wrestle his way to get a tap, that Jacobs might be forced to play a negating role. And just try and make it that we don't get influenced because if they win an even number of taps, you'd have to think we'll probably do better out of it than they will. What are your thoughts on that, Joel?
It's going to be one of the keys to winning, I think, because we know how well Jacobs plays against Port Adelaide. He's won the Showdown medal, I think, twice. He's been pretty close another couple of times as well. If he's on, then he dominates against us and we're in big trouble. It'll be really interesting to see how Ryder goes against him. He's never really played against Jacobs as a sole ruck before. He's always generally been the second ruck. We know how well Ryder played against the Crows in 2015. He kicked 6 goals in the 2 showdowns, playing up forward. How do I expect the matchup to play? I'm not too sure, really. It might end up just being 50-50, but I think hopefully Ryder will have a bit of an advantage around the ground. I think he's definitely got the leap to be able to jump over the top of Jacobs. Jacobs isn't that much of a leaper. He's more of the old sort of Sandy style ruck, I guess. If Ryder can get over him and midfielders can display the form that they've had in the first 2 rounds, I mean, that's going to win us the game, quite simply. Yeah,
well, I mean, I think that someone like Sam Pepper really enjoys getting that direct ruck tap. You saw a few times. Unfortunately, a couple of times were disallowed, but just last game, he's coming straight from Ryder to Sam Pepper, and maybe we might see how he'll perform with the losing ruck if things go badly. It'd be interesting to see that and see how it changes his game.
Look, as we've said, the Crows midfield isn't their strength. That's probably their weak point. So whether the midfield plays really well or not too well, I don't think it's going to really make that much difference to their chance of winning. Whereas I think our midfield is our strength. So if we get shut down, we're not going to win. If we play well, we are probably going to win.
Well, I mean, moving on to the midfield from the ruck contest, our mids are bigger than theirs, the ones in the 22 anyway. And you'd have to think that the way we're playing, we should be in a position to dictate terms. Like you said earlier, the Crows are probably going to try and clear it pretty wide. So we might see a lot of hurried kicks out to 45 degrees from the centre square and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think we'll probably stick with run and carry and try and break through those waves in defence and see how we go that way. I don't think they've got an answer to the combination of Wines and SPP if they're both in the centre square at the same time. I just don't think they have anything that can match that.
You probably add Ebert to that as well, really.
Yeah. Well, as a third, absolutely. Sort of like the third tall forward. If they're not necessarily great as a second or first, but you add it to Wines and SPP, and it becomes really difficult to deal with. So yeah, no, absolutely. And again, Boak getting to play as a small midfielder, what a dream. He doesn't have to crop the big heavy blokes all the time. He just has to deal with the smaller mid that maybe he can outstrength or outpace a little bit. It's nice to get a nicer matchup for him.
Well, that's it. I mean, our three main midfielders now are probably Wines, Ebert, and Sam Powell-Pepper in terms of inside ability to get the ball out.
Yeah.
We're not relying on Boak or Gray to do that anymore, which is fantastic. And they're all, minimum 187 centimetres. You look at the Crows midfield, they've got Sloane, who's I think only about 182. Matt Crouch is 181. I think this is why they're playing Curtly Hampton in the centre, because he's certainly not doing all that much at the moment. But he is a tall figure. He's about 190, I think. And maybe they're just trying to get him in there and hope that he gets his hands on the ball a couple of times.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty glad that we're reducing the Crows to hope. That's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not really winning all that many clearances. He's only one. Like he's started a lot in the midfield at the stoppages. He's right underneath the ball, and he's won 2 clearances for the year so far. So, he's probably not doing his job in that regard.
No, that'd be fair enough to say. I guess we'll move on now to the forwards. Look, I mean, you've already said that the Crows have got the best offence, best forward line. Let's be more specific. And that they've got that combination you have to watch out for. I don't know, how do you feel about matchups in this area? Who goes with Betts, for example? I think that'll be a pretty key one. Because they've had the talls kicking goals a bit, but it's still the smalls that are making their scorelines look honest. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, look, he's averaged 4 goals a game against Port since coming to Adelaide. We know how well he's played. He seems to love playing against us, which sucks. We've tried Impey, we've tried Jonas, we've tried Burn Jones on him since he's crossed over, and none have really worked all that successfully. I guess Jonas has had the most success on him, but I think maybe this week we might have to play Jonas on a toll.
I think so.
Can we stop him? Like, I'm not even all that sure that we can actually stop him, and maybe that's one of those situations where you just sort of, like, he's going to kick 4 goals anyway. You just let him kick his 4 goals and concentrate on shutting down all the other forwards in their forward line.
Look, I think that's pretty reasonable to do. And if we can just force him, I mean, I know it's not a huge difference, but if we can force him to mark a little bit wider, then that might help make the goal accuracy a little bit lower, or more importantly, a little bit further out from goal would be ideal.
I mean, you would assume on face value that Burn Jones will probably stand next to him at the first siren, and we'll see how he goes. We've got other players that can play on him. Maybe Dan Houston might be a shot. I don't know. He's been really, really good one-on-one.
Nah.
Don't know. The thing I like about Dan Houston is I don't think he's going to allow Eddie to push him underneath the ball. The thing about Eddie Betts is he loves to play from behind. He loves to push his opponent under the ball so he can run onto it and have a clear shot at goal running back the other way. Whereas I don't think Dan Houston would allow him to do that. I think he'll make sure that he plays from behind. And that's where Eddie doesn't really like that. He doesn't get too many goals that way.
Look, I see what you're saying. My personal preference is for Dan Houston to maybe play the role that we would normally have Pitai play, or maybe even a Hartwell play, because someone that can mark well, reliably, and then dispose of it effectively. I mean, if we're going to win, if we're going to be, if not winning, at least heavily pressuring their midfield, then there's going to be a few errant kicks going forward, and that sort of marking power is exactly what you want around the half-back line. So I don't know that I want to burn him on Betts if we can have him in a position where we can make a turnover. So it might even be that Houston plays on, a tallish guy, and then Jonas does get Betts at the end of the day. It'd be interesting to see how we decide to go with that.
Yeah. So who plays on Walker? Like, he had a pretty big game against the Hawks. He took 8 marks, kicked a couple of goals. He's kicked 29 goals in 11 games against Port. He's kicked at least 2 goals in every game he's played against Port since 2010. We know that Jonas has had some really good roles on him in the past. Do we go that way again?
Yeah, look, maybe. I think that we've been giving Cleary the big jobs lately, so we might just have Cleary on him, I reckon. See how that goes.
Would certainly, I'm all for Cleary playing on Walker. He might play on Lynch as well, who also has had good form against Port Adelaide. In his last 4 games against the club, he's averaged 19 touches, 7 marks, and also kicked 12 goals against us. And look, he's got great endurance. He's really, really quick. He leads out strongly as well. He's very, very hard to play against. He's probably the best player in the league in that particular third tall sort of lead-up forward role. So maybe Cleary might go to Lynch just because of that endurance advantage.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm asking now, are we going to play Jackson Trengo back? That's part of it.
If Jenkins was playing, I would say 100% he's playing down back. Now that he's not playing, we could probably get away with not having him down there. I mean, again, it depends what Jake Lever does, really, coming into the side. Does he replace Jenkins in that 4th tall forward role? If so, then I would say Trengove's going to head down back. If not, then I think we can afford to play Trengove up forward.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I guess for me, I'd still be keen on Cleary on Walker because I think that he can probably manage it a bit better. I think that Lynch, you're right, he is good, but he's got that agility as well, not just the endurance. I think he's a little bit trickier than Walker in a lot of respects. Walker does a pretty simple thing, and I think that's probably better for where Cleary's at right now. But then who you put on Lynch?
Well, they've still got McGovern. I mean, that's the thing. McGovern kicked 5 goals against us last year. He's not pretty, but he's got big hands and grabs the ball. He's one of the best contested marks going around at the moment. And he destroyed us in the second game last year. So, don't know. Maybe Westhoff. Yeah, I mean that might be an opportunity as well. Yeah, could be. That's certainly an area where it's susceptible. So it's really going to be heavily towards the midfield for us, you'd have to say at this point. All right. We're happy with the forward lines. We can move on to their defence and how we're going to break through that. Yep. I'm a lot happier with these matchups. Hugely happy. I know that Talia is pretty good, but I think that if we've got Brad Eddy doing his thing, we've got Charlie Dixon actually taking marks and kicking goals. I think that's enough to worry him. And then we've got all the smalls around that. If we put Robbie Gray forward, I mean, what are they going to do? I don't think they've got a match up for him. Well, they'll probably try Luke Brown on him. He's their number one sort of shutdown defender. They'll give him a shot first, I think, which means that Chad Wingard might run a little bit free as well. Maybe they'll put Jake Kelly on Wingard, give him a shot. Just on paper, it looks like we should have an advantage up forward, really. We know that Talia usually shuts down Westhoff, so you can write off that one, but I guess we really need Charlie Dixon to have another pretty decent game this week. If he can take another 7 marks, kick a couple of goals, that'd be really, really handy because it's going to free up someone like Brett Eddy or Aaron Young to kick a few goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, really, as much as anything, we just need him to be a credible threat. So if he gets 2 goals and a bunch of marks, then that's enough to break him up and make him worry a little bit.
Look,
this is the thing about Robbie Gray, though.
Their defence play is very similar to the way that we play as well, in terms of they love the third man up. They love to zone off and try and read the play and make sure they get more numbers to the contest where the ball's going to land. So the key for us is to get the ball in quickly and make sure that doesn't happen, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the other things that's a side effect of our larger team in midfield and Robbie Gray going forward is that, like, you put Luke Brown on Robbie Gray's actually got about an inch or 2 on him. And he's a pretty strong little nugget too. So, I don't know. Like I said, I still don't think they've got anyone that can match him. Normally they might just play a taller defender on him, but they haven't got that much that they can really do. They can't really take away from Wingard, as you say. They can't really take away from our other forward options. So it'll be interesting. And Aaron Young, you watch out for too. He's managed to maintain his form from last year. Yeah. I think we've got enough forward options to really stress that defence, and especially if our midfield has a pretty consistent supply going forward. Look, this could be a big win for Port.
So how confident are you? How is your confidence level going into this game right now? Looking at these sides on paper.
Look, my confidence level's pretty high. assuming Ryder is fit. So if he hits a twinge in his hamstring or something like that, then we could struggle. But I think that this is a game that has a really wide variety of possible results. So it could be that the Crows win by about 30, or it could be that we win by about 50, or anywhere in between, because we're playing a shootout. This is a shootout, basically. It's going to come down to who clears it, because we know that once it goes forward, it's probably not going to come back. Yeah. Although we've probably got more chance of making it come back than the Crows do. So I guess on average, I'd probably say Port should win this one. By how much, I don't know. It's a showdown, so maybe that's a big overestimate to say that they'll win by 5-6 goals. But we'll see. I feel like on average we should win by about 4 goals.
Okay.
Of the possible scenarios. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Looking on from there, the game in general. Coach, should we be concerned about Don Pike? Are we really worried about him?
Don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that. Possibly. He's got the Crows playing very, very well. And that's, I guess, the main concern going into this one is that they are in great form. They've been able to find themselves 3 or 4 goals behind in both games this year and come back and win very, very comfortably. So he's obviously, him and his crew are obviously able to recognise faults mid-game and change things up a little bit. So in that regard, I guess, yes, we should be concerned. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not super convinced that he's going to make the Crows a super side, but he does seem like a coach that knows exactly the list he's got and he's playing to its strengths, which is a huge deal. The current game style we're playing, it's not hugely different to in the past, but our personnel's changed to the point that we can actually pull it off a bit. And just being a coach that does know their list and that can make a game for their list. I mean, that's what Choco used to do, regardless of whatever terrible side we had or good side we had at the time. He always used to make a game. And I guess that probably puts Don Pike in a similar category, although, of course, the Crows is a lot more static in terms of what they can do. I don't know. I think that we should expect a competent coaching performance, but I think it's just beatable. I don't think it'll be won by the coaches too much, unless I think it's going to come down to, is a coach going to make a horrible error, and can they correct it?
Yeah,
quite possibly. I don't think that's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see. And last question: psychological advantage, Macca. Who do you reckon's got it?
Crows for sure.
You reckon? Why do you think that?
Well, they've won the last 3 against us. They've won 4 of the last 5 against us. They know that just about every single player in their forward line has had a huge game against them. Against us. So I think they'll be very confident coming into this game because they know that in recent history they've played exceptionally well against Port Adelaide, and they've got the wood on us at the moment. So I think that sort of mental advantage will give them a bit of confidence. Hopefully we can sort of stop that from happening this week.
You see, I kind of feel it's the other way around. I kind of feel like because we're on the rise and, as you said, they have got the better record. I think looking at our midfield, like if I'm looking at our midfield, I'm thinking on the Crows, then I just would be really worried about the explosiveness of it. Yeah? Like there's just so much potential to just break zones up, and that's what they rely on so heavily. I think we've got a psychological advantage, particularly if we have a couple of flashy, big goals early on or something like that.
But see, they could probably say the same thing. Foot. They could say the same thing because they've got a lot of very quick midfielders now that can break through the lines as well. So, I don't know. I think if there's a psychological advantage in this game, I think it's going to lie with the Crows at this point.
Okay. Well, I disagree, but that's all right. That's fine. Right. Yeah. All right. And Macca's, have you got any questions from Bigfooty?
I do, but just before we start on them,
yeah.
There's one question that I want to ask, and that's regarding Pal Pepper. He's obviously had a massive 2 first games in his career. He's coming up against the Crows side this week. Do they target him? Are they going to try and rough him up a bit? And how do you think he will respond to that?
I don't think they'll target him physically. I think they might target him by having someone ready to be on the other end of his kicks when he clears. I think he gets the ball and he clears pretty well, but every time that we get the ball, there's always one where maybe they can scoop it up and clean it up. So I don't know. I think that might be the only place where he sees difficulty is, and they'll actually try and frustrate the result of his play rather than the actual play itself.
Okay.
But I don't think they'll rough him up. I don't think they'll do that.
There's a big chance they will.
Really?
I think they might.
Who's going to do it?
I think they might try and target him and, just bumps and see. Look, the first two rounds, he has been a little bit loose in terms of his frees against. I think at this early stage of his career, maybe they might think if they can get in his head, they might be able to get a few cheap free kicks from him. And if we can if it gets a little bit more physical than that and someone sort of runs through him, it might put off the rest of our team as well, who might be seeking revenge for a young player getting hurt.
If I'm the Crows, I'm roughing out Jared Polec. Yeah. Sorry.
I think that makes sense. But I don't think you would see the reaction to roughing up Jared Polec as you would in roughing up Pepper. Not
from the other players, but from the player. I reckon that Polec would have a stronger reaction to getting given close attention than Sam Powell-Pepper will. I think when we saw Fife smacking Powell-Pepper and trying to intimidate him last week, he just didn't give a shit. I think that's his brand. I don't think he's the guy that's going to get fired up and start punching people or anything. I think he's just going to get on with playing hard football like a Port Adelaide player is supposed to do, That's the thing. You've heard me talk about it on the podcast before. West Adelaide bullshit, where West Adelaide go the man and Port Adelaide go the ball, and then who wins? Port. So
I think that's exactly. I would be pretty happy if they did that. This is where we need Greg Phillips at centre half back, telling anyone that's close, look, if you touch him, you're going off the ground in a body bag.
Yeah, well, I guess that might be Tom Jonas, but I don't know if he's got that same intimidating presence. I guess Jackson Trengove, isn't it? It's Jackson Trengove, isn't it?
Trengove would be the most one likely. That would do that. Yeah. For sure. Now, questions from the forum. We do have some questions from the forum. Papagello has asked, who would win a fight between a pensioner with a sweaty Camry chamois and Josh Jenkins?
I'd hope the pensioner, because why is Josh Jenkins fighting a pensioner? I think he'd just say, I think he'd say, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to punch a pensioner, in which case the pensioner probably wins. So there you go. There's your answer.
Josh Jenkins would tell him to rack off and they'd probably throw their apricot slice at him. So that's probably about it.
Yeah, depending on how long it's been baked, it could do a little bit of damage, I guess. I don't know.
Portmanteau has asked, how is it that our 2014 game plan was so easily shut down while the Crows have been able to play high-octane wave-running style with little hindrance for going on 3 seasons now?
The Crows have had a consistency in their playing list that we haven't necessarily had. We've had big changes the last 2 years. We've had Ryder come in and change our whole ruck setups and therefore our forward setups as well in 2015. 2016 we had Charlie Dixon come in and we had no ruckman. I'm not going to count Matty Lobby. And, there's a settlement, but also just the fact that since 2014 we've got a bigger midfield than we used to have. We don't have to run around to get the ball ahead. We don't have to run to space and sort of do clever things like that. We can sort of charge through a bit more, Guys like Aaron Young are now feeling confident enough to say, no, I'm just going to run through this. Powell-Pepper started day one just breaking tackles. And for some reason, unlike the start of a lot of other seasons, the umpires are being actually a little bit patient with players trying to break tackles. So that's been good this year. That's been good for us. So I think that's most of it, just that our personnel's changed and that, realistically, of the players on our list, we're currently playing, I reckon, pretty much the biggest list in midfield we can play. Our backups behind the guys we've got in the side right now, they're not big guys, if you lose an SPP and you bring in almost anyone, we're going to lose size in the midfield. And, it doesn't take much to mess with chemistry.
I don't think our 14 game plan was easily shut down, to be honest.
Oh, I don't think it was easily shut down, but
we didn't lose many games that year, and when we did lose, it was only by a kick usually. I think the tinkering that we made to that 14 game plan didn't work, and I think mentally there's a big problem there, and that's probably the big difference with us is that the Crows seem to always be able to thump teams below them on the ladder. They have a lot of big wins every year, and they usually struggle against teams above them. They usually play all right at home against sort of top 4 teams, but play them away, they usually get beaten pretty comfortably. We seem to be the exact opposite, where we struggle against bottom 4 teams for whatever reason. But we usually seem to play okay against better opposition. Like, we seem to play at the level of our opposition more than what the Crows do. So I think that's a big issue in that. I think it leads to sort of mental issues there, as opposed to sort of game plan issues with that particular question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we were shut down reliably as you said, but I think we were shut down in a similar way most of the time than we were, and I think that's what's different. I don't think we're as easy to shut down now, because you can't just exploit, the fact that we're not necessarily great at the wrestling contests as we were. We had a few players that were good at it. Yep. Now we can probably actually expect to win more of them, and that changes how you play as a team. And honestly, everyone gets confidence from it. Everyone sees it. We had a couple of long goals early on, and now in round 1. And since then, we've had more long goals than I reckon we had all of the last 2 years combined. Yeah. More goals from outside 50 almost. Sure. So it's just that team confidence being built by that key change in personnel. It's really interesting.
Lightning Rod has asked, do we have a player in our starting 22 that has the propensity to show the same level of passion and aggression Chad Corns did during showdowns?
That's a tough call. That's a tough call.
Well, clearly Carl Amon, I think.
I don't know. I mean, I guess Chad Wingard. It's a Chad thing. Maybe it's a Chad thing.
Wingard definitely gets fired up. That's for sure. I think
does get
Jonas
fired
gets
up. He
fired
gets
up
proper
for
fired
showdowns.
up.
I think we might see someone like
but...
Trengove or Power Pepper get fired up, but it'll be hard to get to the level of Chad Corns because he seemed to raise his game and he just loved giving it to their supporters.
Well, it's not just that, but also the Chad Corns, like, it was visible. So with Tom Jonas, I don't think it's visible. Like, he might be fired up and play well, but you don't get that sort of his whole face contorting into something monstrous when something good happens,
Yeah, looks like he's going to explode.
Yeah, Chad Corns looks like he's auditioning for Beauty and the Beast when he gets excited. It's really, when Chad Wingard, he's got a little bit of that. He's got a little bit of that after kicking a goal. He's got the little bit of the screwing up in the face and the fists and everything. So I reckon he's probably the closest, but I just don't think we've got anyone with that same degree of schadenfreude when things go well for you and badly for someone else.
That's fair. Schultz and Fest has asked, would you rather fight 100 goose-sized Josh Jenkins or one Josh Jenkins-sized goose?
I've dealt with geese before. I lived on a farm for a while.
Okay.
Geese are rough. I don't want to fight any geese, so I'll fight the 100 Josh Jenkins.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I think
you
probably win as well.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Like, do I have an apricot slice?
Maybe. Well, talking about food, Fishing Rick, of course, has asked a food question. Plain buttered or caramel popcorn?
None of them.
None?
My sisters like caramel. This is what I've bought some pectin from a place, the Melbourne Ingredients Store. They're called something like that. Pectin to make jam. And while I was ordering, I noticed they had cheese powder. I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome. So now when I do a micro popcorn, because the butter never really covers it properly, and you have to use ridiculous amounts to get a bit on most of the pieces, and then it's too buttery and oily and disgusing.
It's not really
you just
buttery,
get a bit of the cheese
salty,
powder,
isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't work real well. Whereas you open the bag, you put in a bit of a teaspoon of this cheese stuff, shake up the whole bag, and you've got nice cheesy popcorn, flavoured popcorn, because it's a dust. It's really fine powder, and so it gets around and sticks to all the bits, and it's really nice. So there you go. That's my answer.
I've got to say, I'm going to butt in and say Dion Corbett has raised a very good point and has said that our captain gets fired up on the Spreaker chat. So that is very true. He does get fired up for showdowns.
He gets fired up, but it's not comical. He
needs to get the red face, vein popping in the neck thing going on, which
that the Chads have, particularly Chad Corns. You know, he doesn't have that. Like he gets fired up, but he gets fired up like a normal person.
Yeah. I would say I do like plain popcorn. I'm not all that keen on buttered popcorn, to be honest. Caramel popcorn, I don't think I've had for a very long time. I used to love Lollygobble Bliss Bombs back in the day.
Oh, no.
They were awesome. They were fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, they were great.
God.
They were awesome. But haven't had them
Rush.
for a very, very long time. So I would be going with the plain popcorn.
Okay, fair enough. We also haven't counted chili popcorn either. That's quite nice.
Oh, that'd
We
be
put a
quite
bit
nice.
of chili powder, bit of chili pepper, bit of salt, and shake it up. And that's pretty good.
I could see that. I could do that.
Yeah, give it a go.
Nice. Wolfie1870 has asked me if I've tried Aldi's knockoff potato gems, and if so, would I recommend them? I haven't, because we don't have an Aldi up here, but I think we are getting one soon. So I think it's getting built in the not too distant future. So probably by the end of the year, might be able to let you know about that one. But look, for me, it's bird's eye or it's nothing, quite simply.
I don't eat potato gems, but if you're getting Aldi's in Adelaide now, wait for winter and get the Jaffa cakes. They're fantastic.
Jaffa cakes, okay, yeah.
Jaffa cakes, yep. They're a seasonal
Fair
thing,
enough.
but they're pretty good.
There we go. One great club has asked if he should enjoy a serving of sticky tender ribs during the game.
Yes.
Definitely.
It makes it so much more fun. And also it gives you something to nervously chew on if things are getting a bit tense and frustrating.
Look, every time is rib time for me. Ribs are great. Ribs are awesome.
Ribs
Big
are an
Daddy.
interesting thing because, I just want to finish on ribs. Ribs are really interesting because I think that people either like them or either don't really like them or they're obsessed with them. Like, they'll just eat all the ribs, everything. It's crazy. Anyway, yes, continue.
Big Daddy has asked, does chicken salt have chickens in it?
Yes. No. I don't know.
Look, I believe there are 2.5 chickens in every sachet of chicken salt, to be honest. So, yeah.
Nice.
That's it. And last one we've got is from Hammer8, who has said the saying, looks like Tarzan plays like Jane, and looks like Jane plays like Tarzan. Name one player for each.
Oh, shit, I don't know.
I'll go first because I've got an answer. I've got an answer for this one. For me,
Okay.
looks like Tarzan plays like Jane has got to be Zach Smith, I think. And looks like Jane plays like Tarzan. I would
Rory
say
Sloane for me.
Yeah, Rory Sloane. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. I would
He's
go
got
with
very
that.
pretty hair.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just stick with Rory Sloane for the one because I can't think of anyone for the other. Sorry.
That's all right. And that's it. That's all we got.
All right. Well, look, I guess we can move on to the final wrap-up. Macca, have you decided who's your winning side and what your predicted margin is going to be?
This has just added more confusion to an already serious problem here in trying to tip a winning side and a margin. Look, I'm going to say the margin's going to be... the margin will be 41 points.
Right.
And the winner will be
Yeah.
Adelaide.
Oh, Macca.
So the Crows
What is that
are going to
about?
get one over us.
Do you really think that they're 7 goals better than us?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, gosh, I don't see that. Oh, no, don't agree, Macca.
Well,
I'm going to
anyone
say...
can be any goal difference better than any other side on any particular day, really. So, just depends how it
that's a
plays
lot.
out.
That's a big margin.
It's a big... Look, I think whether we win or the Crows win, I don't think it's going to be super close. I think it's going to be a decent margin in the end. It might be close up till three-quarter time, but I think whoever gets on top in the last quarter will run away with the game a bit.
Yeah, all right. Look, I'm going to go Port, and I reckon margin, I've said already, kind of my scenarios are all averaging around maybe a 4-goal margin, so I'm going to say 24 points, Port Adelaide. But as you say, I mean, I do think it could blow out, but I don't think it would blow out that much, and particularly not the Crows way. I do feel like we are favoured to win over the Crows on the whole, personally, but just because we have that midfield advantage and how important midfield is in this game, given that we sort of are kind of two strong forward lines against relatively defences that can be exploited, I think that midfield contest is going to be really important. So
I will say,
right.
I'm more confident about us winning this game than I've been us winning any showdown since 2014.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because whenever I tend to be confident we're going to win, we seem to lose.
Okay. Who's your highest goal kicker for Port Adelaide? Who's going to get him?
I think Youngie might break free with 3 goals.
I'm going to go Chad with 3. Chad Wingard. I reckon he's due for his step-up game. He's had quietish games, but he's still got goals and still done a bit. But I'd like to see him have one of those Chad Wingard games that he has in the big ones. And this is a big one. This is the big one for the regular season, 1v2. So this is the sort of game when he usually really steps up. So I'm going to go with Chad for sure. Hopefully 4, but probably 3. New section, Fear Factor. Which Port player do you think Adelaide should be most concerned about?
Which Port player?
Who's going to give him brown trousers?
Oh, I'd be most concerned about. Well, it's probably got to be Ryder, I think, this week, because I think, as I said before, like Ryder and Jacobs have never really gone up toe to toe against each other as the lead ruckman. So I think if Ryder can get an advantage. If same as I said last week, I think if Ryder wins the ruck, we win the game. Simple as that. And I think that will be why he will be the one that they're worried about.
For me, I kind of feel like it should be Ollie Wines. I think the ruck thing could give us a small advantage, but I don't think they've got a match for Ollie Wines. And he's in rare form this year. He's added a few extra strings to his bow, and I think he's definitely the player that on selection night right now they're going, oh God, what are we going to do about him?
Well, look, he did have 2, statistically at least, he had 2 very big games against the Crows last year as well. So he does come to play against the Crows on a pretty regular basis. Yeah.
Interesting. And the reverse, which Adelaide player should Port be most concerned about?
Which Adelaide player should Port most be concerned about? That's a very good question. I think I'm going to say Tom Lynch.
I was going to say Tom Lynch. Okay, that's fine. Let's agree.
Got him first. I'm going to say Tom Lynch because I think if he's played really, really well against Port Adelaide the last few times he's played. He won the Showdown medal last year. He's got that pace advantage, the endurance advantage. He runs very hard. He can kick goals. And I think we probably don't have an ultimate matchup for him. We might end up playing someone like Hartlett or Brody on him just to try and keep up. I think he's the one that we might need to stop because they do play through him quite a lot. And if we can stop that supply, that'll certainly go some way of winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the tools, Taylor Walker and Mitch McGovern play a lot more conventionally. They're player types that we have beaten in other games in the past, not necessarily even those specific players, but just they're an archetype. Because I think Tom Lynch is a little bit more exceptional than the other 2, and he has performed well against us in the past. I think it makes him a tougher matchup for us. So, totally agree with that one. And another new one, Quiet Achiever. Who is going to put in the game of high standard that may not wow the crowds? Who's going to be the guy that you say, he played really well, didn't he? But you don't go, wow. Who is it?
I'm going to say Sam Gray.
Okay.
I'm going to say Sammy. I think he's going to do a defensive job on someone, and he's going to keep them pretty quiet. And I think it might go unnoticed a little bit by the crowd on the day.
Look, I think it's going to be Matty Broadbent. I think he's been in pretty good form these last 2 games. I've been more impressed with his game this year than I have been in previous years. I don't know. I don't know if he's just taken got a bit better focus, or if it's just that the machine's working better around him. But I think he's a guy that, I think he'll do all right. And I think we might not notice it because there's other guys doing ridiculous things.
I think that's a really smart call. I think, especially if he does end up playing on someone like Lynch. Because I feel like the general Port supporter population won't think that Lynch is as dangerous as what we both think he is. So therefore, if he shuts him down, I think it'll go pretty unnoticed by the Port crowd.
Yeah,
whereas we'll be going there
agree.
going, yeah, Brody.
And I think he's been using the ball better as well when he's had it. He's been a lot smarter in terms of his team play and scrambling out of defence and all that sort of stuff. It's been good to see. So, yeah, I'm happy with that one.
If he shuts Lynch down, that's a 10 in my rankings. That's a 10. All the 10s. Everyone has a 10. All the 10s.
Okay, good. Any games you're looking forward to apart from the Port game this weekend?
Oh, look, I don't even know who else is playing. To be honest, I've spent
God.
a week concentrating on the Showdown. Look, I think North versus GWS will be a pretty good game. That'll be a pretty decent.
Yeah.
Geelong and Melbourne will be very, very interesting. Melbourne have obviously had a very good start to the season. How are they going to be affected by Hogan and Lewis not playing? There might be an upset there, I reckon.
Well, I don't know. I think Geelong's going to win that one. I'm not impressed with Melbourne, believe it or not. I'm not impressed with Melbourne's form this year. They're still doing really dumb things, like just watching Max Gawn last week. Some of the stupid handballs that guy gives off. He's an excellent ruckman, but he just, what are you doing? You handball to a bloke that's 20 metres away, and then he's got the guys got someone he's running into, and from where Max Gawn's standing, he can see that there's a guy coming to put him under pressure. I don't know, and there's just lots of little hiccups like that along the way.
For me, it's more individual games that I'm going to be really interested in seeing. I'm super excited to see how Griffin Lloyd goes for Freo, and Harley Ballock as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Durden plays his first game for North Melbourne, finally, after I think it's his third year on the list. So that's going to be really interesting. Hopefully Jared Berry and Hugh McCluggage both play for Brisbane. Super excited to see how they both go as well. And look, if Harry Mackay, he's a huge key forward. Pretty keen to see how he goes for Carlton on the weekend as well. Yeah, look,
I've been going through the coming games ahead, and I kind of feel like Brisbane might be our first loss for the year. And if McCluggage has got a couple of games under his belt by then, added to Brisbane, I think they're doing a bit better this year. And I think they're focusing on the right things they need to do to improve their side. Which is unusual for Brisbane. I don't know. I think they're doing all right, but also
decent footy at the moment.
Yeah, they are. Maybe it's just the honeymoon period or something like that. But I also agree with you on Griffin Logue. I know that everyone's sort of having a bit of a laugh at West Coast about SPP and how they let him go right under their nose. But I guess there's probably a lot of Freo fans out there right now asking, "Oh, gee, we could have had SPP too. The Griffin Logue better be all right." So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. Because, look, we saw him play last year. He'll give it a red hot go, and I think that's as much of what Freo need in their side right now as anything else. The fact of that little bit of enthusiasm to come in and play well. So
he'll be interesting to see. Right. He reads the play so well. He'll do wonderful things across half-back for Freo, I think, long term.
He'll look like a champion compared to the guys that got there right now. So I think he could come straight in and be a rising star nominee. Who knows?
Look, they've made so many changes as well, Freo. And some of them are maybe a little bit harsh, I think. Or maybe only one. I thought Darcy Tucker had a really good game last week, but all the others maybe not. But at least they're changing things up.
Yeah. Look, there's two games that you haven't mentioned that I'm pretty keen on. It's not often that I'm keen on a Collingwood game, but Sydney versus Collingwood on Friday night. I think this is going to be one of the ones that gets the Sack Buckley team out in force. I think that the Sydney are going to win this one pretty easily. And for me, I think that we might see something similar with the Suns beating Hawthorn, or even if they just finish within a couple of goals after being smashed by GWS last week. I reckon all those young Hawk fans that are just thinking that they've got the most invulnerable team on the planet, I think they might start panicking if Gold Coast does them in. So I'm interested to see how that one goes as well. But
all those Hawthorn members since 2014 scarves will be in the bin.
Yeah. Well, they might be bringing out the piles of horse shit themselves and saying, "What's going on? This isn't the club that we grew up with 4 years ago."
It's all Clarko's fault for getting rid of Mitchell and Lewis.
Yeah. Oh, someone will say that.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, we've just hit the hour mark. I think we had that paced fairly well on the whole, so I'm pretty pleased with that.
That's very good.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a big one. Hopefully, we win. Really
good one. Ports are going to win by heaps. It's just going to be an absolute day out. We're going to get 5 goals up in the first quarter and then just keep kicking away from there. It'll be real good.
That's the way.
That'd be nice.
Good stuff.
All right. Nothing left to say about Carnport. Carnapau.
Bray was brave, running hard, more getting forward. One last chance, Boat brilliant, Wines, Montfrey's centering ball, Cassisi, Willard! You know who again?
It is his birthday.
Kids are